Hello, and welcome. I am Mop Man. Today we will be collecting ballistics data. The cartridge of choice today will be the 9mm 124 grain Speer Golddot plus P law enforcement round. It will be shot out of my 4¼ barreled Wilson Combat SFT9 and my P365 X Macro with a 3.1-inch barrel. Also, yes, these firearms were cleared before the start of the video. We will be recording the velocity data from 10 shots out of each firearm. I will be standing 15 yards from the target for each shot. Then we'll come back and look at the data. Now here we are at the public range. Please excuse any gunfire you may hear in the background. Once again, I have my lab radar set up beside me, and I am 15 yards away from the target. My 4¼ SFT9 is loaded up with 10 rounds of the aforementioned Speer Golddots. Now, let's see what happens. $1,213. 1,232. 1,227. 1,219. 1,222. 1,201. 1,193. 1,228. 1,203. And 1,235. That target looks pretty good. Let's move on. I've gone on ahead and put up a new target. Now let's see how my 3.1-inch P365 does. 1,121. 1,118. 1,126. 1,141. 1,160. 1,088. 1,143. 1,111. 1,100. And 1,127. This target looks even better. Now, let's return to my office and take a look at our data. Here we are back at the office, and our data looks really good. Before we begin, though, I want to make it known that, for the sake of brevity, I will not talk about all the data I am showing you on screen. I only want to focus on 4 data points for each firearm. For the SFT9, we have an average velocity at the muzzle of 1,217 feet per second, with a standard deviation of 14.36 feet per second, or 1.17% the average velocity. The average kinetic energy for the SFT9 was 407.5 foot-pounds of force, with a standard deviation of 9.7 foot-pounds of force, or 2.38% the average kinetic energy. From this data, I can conclude that the Speer Golddot cartridge performed exactly as it should have out of a 4¼ barrel. For this length of barrel, I'm seeing an average velocity of over 1,200 feet per second and an average kinetic energy of over 400 foot-pounds of force. The standard deviations also look good, as they are both under 5% of their respective averages. These numbers are my general standard for high-performance 9mm. We also got good data for the P365 and its 3.1-inch barrel. The average velocity was 1,123 feet per second, with a standard deviation of 21.17 feet per second, or 1.88% the average velocity. The average kinetic energy was 346 foot-pounds of force, with a standard deviation of 13.17 foot-pounds of force, or 3.79% the average kinetic energy. For shorter barrels like that of the P365, I like to see average velocities of around 1,100 feet per second and kinetic energies of around 350 foot-pounds of force. That said, the Speer Golddot achieved my goal for this test also. Now, I know the kinetic energy was 346 foot-pounds of force and not 350. However, I find this difference to be insignificant and good enough for all intents and purposes. With all that out of the way, let's shift gears to the two targets I shot. The first target I shot was with the SFT9, and I scored a 96 on the B8 target you see on screen. At 15 yards, the group was fair for my shooting skills. The rounds had a mild recoil and were very controllable and comfortable to shoot. Strangely enough, the group I shot with the P365 was tighter than that of the SFT9, netting me a 98 on that target, even though the P365 is much smaller and lighter. The shots were controllable, but it came at the cost of having significantly snappier recoil. At the end of the day, though, this is just data on a screen. It does not tell us anything about the cartridge's effectiveness on a target. So, let's head back to the range for one more test. Welcome back to the range, and what I have set up here are two 10% ballistics gel blocks. The first block has a heavy clothing barrier consisting of 2 cotton sheets and 2 denim sheets. This is done to simulate a worst-case scenario and prevent bullet expansion. The second block is a catch block to prevent bullets from escaping the gel. I will be standing around 3 to 5 yards away from the target and shoot it first with my SFT9 and then follow it up with my P365. Let's see what happens. Both shots look good. Now, let's get some measurements and a closer look. And here we are looking at the wound tracks up close in my light box. The top track is from the SFT9 and the bottom is from the P365. The two tracks are close to one another, but they are not touching. Now, let's take a slow travel along the shot's paths. Both tracks have good cavitation for 9mm shot through clothing. With that said, we are now coming to the end of the P365's track at around 18 inches of penetration. And just a few inches away, we start to see the SFT9's track end at roughly 23 inches of penetration. Now let's take a look at each bullet up close and take some measurements. The shots from before looked really good in the 10% ballistics gel. However, we do need to inspect both rounds for expansion and weight retention. And as we can see, both rounds expanded well in the gel. The left round is from the SFT9, while the right is from the P365. The SFT9 expanded more, and you can see it better from this side view. It is also worth noting that the P365's round did fragment a small bit in the gel. Now I'm bringing my scale onto screen to show if any mass was lost. Each measurement will be in grains. The first round is from the SFT9 and it comes in at 124.5 grains. It has no loss of mass and may have actually picked up some fabric or gel, giving it that little bit extra mass. Now the P365 comes in at around 122.5 grains, and that is not surprising considering it has a missing petal. Here on screen we have the SFT9's round, and we're going to record its expansion. For the first measurement, I'm getting 12.54 millimeters. Now the second comes in at 11.72 millimeters. Third is 12.34 millimeters. And finally, the fourth is 12.3 millimeters. Now for the P365's round, we have just this jagged edge that's a little finicky to measure. And it comes out to 13.27 millimeters. Followed by 11.45 millimeters. And finally 10.69 millimeters. Now, let's head back to my office for some closing remarks. Hello, and welcome back. We are nearing the end of the video, but before that, I have a few things I would like to say. I want everyone to know that this is a test sample size of 1, and I am biased in favor of this round. I carry this round for self-defense, and I trust my life to it. My hope is that my bias was tempered by the data shown earlier in this video. Please, take what I say with a grain of salt and research what works best for you and your needs. Now overall, the Speer Golddot had excellent velocity, expansion, and penetration out of both firearms, at least in my opinion. Now, if you stuck around this long, thank you for listening to me ramble. That's about all. I'll see you next time.